Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
I remember December 7th, 1941, like it just happened an hour ago or yesterday. I listened to all the radio broadcast about the severe damages there, and I'm sure that most people today would, if you asked them about December 7th, 41, they would not be that familiar, but I just say, well, do you remember September the 11th? Turned 18 on October 25th, 1943. I received my draft notice immediately, finished my last final at Ohio State in the fall quarter, December the 12th, 1943, and December 13th, 1943, I was inducted in the Army at Fort Hays in Columbus, Ohio. And I was given a furlough, and it was about the first week in June, and I was home on furlough when D-Day happened. And when I reported back, I went into my first sergeant and told him who I was, and I said I wanted to volunteer for the paratroopers. And he said that the heat must have got me. He said, boy, he said, you sleep on that. He said, if you still want to join the paratroopers in the morning, he said, you come in and see me. So about 7 o'clock the next morning, I was right back in our company headquarters and told the first sergeant I wanted to join the paratroopers. And he said, boy, you are crazy. We went to Camp Shanks, New York, which is the port of embarkation, and then we boarded, they brought us by train then down to New York City, and we boarded the Queen Mary, and what a sight that was, a beautiful, luxurious ocean liner. And as I remember, I believe there were about 20,000 troops all together on the Queen Mary. And we were put on trains taken down to a camp near Windon, England. And at that area there, I think it was called St. Osborne, we were divided up and put in different airborne divisions. So I was put in the 17th Airborne, the 194th Glider Infantry, 2nd Battalion, E Company. And at this point, about the middle of December, the Germans broke through into Belgium and started the offensive. It was referred to as the Bulge. It had to be around somewhere around the 22nd or 23rd of December. They flew us into France, and we landed. They flew us over in C-47s. They landed. We were all fully equipped for combat, and they immediately put us on trucks and moved us up to a town called Sedan, France. And Sedan was right on the Belgian border. About 2 days later, it was just right after Christmas, they moved us up into the Battle of the Bulge into Belgium, and they pulled the 11th Armored Division back and put the 17th Airborne Division up there, and our 194th Glider Regiment was one of the lead regiments in our attack, and we were attacking. We were at the southwest side of Bastogne, and we were attacking, trying to take over a crossroads that allowed the Germans to surround Bastogne and move their armored by. And so our first combat was just directly fighting armored. And we lost an extremely large number of our men. The snow conditions were very bad, probably the worst winter they had had in many years in that area. Foot to 2 feet of snow was just the common, weather conditions. And we fought our way into Bastogne, and that was really quite a reunion, especially for me as we fought our way back into Bastogne. The first guy I seen was a fellow that we went through jump school together, and we went overseas together. And when we got overseas, he was put in the 101st, and I was put in the 17th. And so I stayed in the same foxhole with him that night, and I don't think we didn't sleep that night. I think we talked the entire night. As we got back in Cherlons, out of the 185 company strength that we went into the Bulge with, there were 33 of us left. Hey, we have a mission, and our mission was an airborne drop into Germany on March 24th, 1945. So everybody was really getting prepared. So the morning of the 24th, we're up around 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody was given a big meal in the mess halls, and we go out to the airfields and just march on out to the airfields. The guys that were jumping were getting ready, getting their parachutes on, and those of us that were going on gliders, we were getting all the combat equipment we could carry or we wanted to carry, and we overloaded ourselves as a general rule. But then we got in the gliders, got in the C-47s, and the gliders, there was one C-47 would pull 2 gliders. There was 15 men in each glider, counting your pilot and co-pilot. And at approximately 9 o'clock or 9:30, we took off from an airfield in France and headed towards Germany. And as we got within about 100 miles of the Rhine River, we could see planes coming in from our left, and here it was the British 6th Airborne. And there's so many planes in the air, it looked like you could almost get out and walk on the planes, on their wings. A few planes got hit, seen a couple gliders caught fire and burn in the air, and then there'd even be some rifle fire from the ground where some of the German troops were firing at us. And one person sitting next to me, a bullet come through the bottom of the glider and went through his foot, and he didn't even know what it was other than he felt a real stinging in his foot. And some flak hit the windshield of our glider, knocked a piece of the windshield out about the size of a basketball, and the pilot got cut a little bit, a facial cut. He was bleeding a little bit, and the co-pilot took over. In that little incident, they didn't get the pull rope released, and we went on past the drop zone where everybody was landing and where they were parachuting into, and landed in a farmer's field about 10 miles on east of Wessel, Germany. But our glider made a turn, come around, landed in a farm field, went through a fence, up over a gravel road, through another fence, and finally came to a halt out in another field. We immediately started to take some, as we got out of the glider quickly, we started taking a little bit of fire from some German troops that were located near a farmhouse, and we returned to fire and just opened up with everything we had. And they gave up quickly, and we started back. We could see the smoke and, of course, all the planes and everything back in the direction we wanted to go, so we started back in that direction. And I think this was about noon. by the time we got back to where our drop zone was and where all of our 17th Airborne was located, and the British 6th was just to the north of us, it was about dark that evening, and the invasion was very successful. There was a number of planes shot down and a number of men lost, but a very successful airborne mission. They had us moving on to what was called the Ruhr Pocket, and we were just still having a lot of resistance from German troops that were in that area and were being surrounded in the Ruhr Pocket. This was successful and completed, and they pulled us back out of the Ruhr Pocket and took the 17th Airborne Division to Essen and Mulheim and Duisburg and Dusseldorf. So the 17th occupied these four cities in the general area and around them. So they immediately put MP bands on us, and as a parachute infantryman, we were now the military police and put over in the 82nd Airborne. At that time, we were really given all new clothes. We were had to become one of the parade outfits that would actually represent the United States. And General Gavlin was the commanding general of the 82nd Airborne, and he was a fine person. He wanted to get around and just almost get to know everybody in his division. Instead of giving an assignment of being sent on to maybe the South Pacific to jump into Japan, the 82nd Airborne was sent to Berlin to represent the United States in the German capital of Berlin. And they took us by train, the old 40 and 8s, and we got on our way to Berlin. We heard about the final signing of the end of the war. We went on to Berlin, and we were in Berlin for about 7 months, and our duty was to parade at the drop of a dignitary. And every dignitary in the country probably wanted to come to Berlin to see Berlin. So this was quite a nice assignment, I would say. If you participated in athletics, the only thing you had to do was you had to stand reveille in the morning and retreat in the evening, and then participate in parades. Well, I ran on our division track team, and I also played basketball on our regimental basketball team. So I was busy with a lot of sports, and did get to run in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin. It was in the Russian sector, but I ran in 2 track meets in the Olympic Stadium. We came back to New York. They moved us up to Camp Shanks, New York, that former port of embarkation camp, and they had us do a Victory Day parade up Fifth Avenue on January 12th, 1946. And that was quite an experience. A ticker tape parade in New York was a real celebration. So I come home in about the 4th week in January 1946. And that really is the completion of my experience during World War II.